Welcome to a special edition of Inside Politics. I'm Chris Varcoe, columnist with the Calgary Herald, joined by political columnist Don Braid. Don, we're talking today about the sudden death of former Premier Jim Prentice. He died Friday morning in a plane crash near Kelowna, British Columbia. It was a shock to everybody, and obviously the thoughts are with his friends and family today. What really stands out for you when we talk about Jim Prentice, the politician?
Well, I find myself incredibly sad about this. This is a tragic trajectory for a political life. The guy comes back from Ottawa. He wants us to rescue his old party and put it back together again and rebuild Alberta. And all those goals were genuine. I still remember how almost everybody was kind of enthusiastic about the guy. He was widely liked by people in other parties. And then a series of the province changed mood, a series of political mistakes and some political bad luck, and the campaign comes along, and then the guy goes into retirement and he got out of there. He didn't try to meddle anymore. People made their call, and he's out, and he's leading a life with his family. He loved his family so much and his grandchildren, and now this. I mean, you hardly know what to say. It is one of the saddest political stories I've seen in my career.
Probably the moment that stands out for me when we're talking about Jim Prentice, and I'm not going to proclaim that I knew him well, but I once sat down with him for a couple of hours in the middle of 2014 in the PC leadership race, and we wanted to do a profile on him, and we said, please choose a place that has some personal meaning to you, somewhere that actually means something where we can sit around and talk about politics. And he chose the hockey rink, and he explained to me when we were on the ice that it was important because he was a bit of a rink rat when he moved to this province as a youngster and lived up in Grand Cache. His father was a former NHL player. He grew to love hockey that way. But he also spoke about the fact that he learned how to build a team and work on a team as part of that. And he really equated that to his life in politics. And I think that was very important for him. And that, I think, is really going to stand out for me as a guy who was very passionate about hockey, but a guy who was very passionate about politics, about public service, and obviously about his family. And I think that's really what stands out for me. Don, what do you think is going to be the legacy for Jim Prentice when people step back and think about him? Because he had a long political career that dated back decades in this province.
He did, and as far as the legacy goes, I mean, it's unfortunately negative. The party, he did some good things. I'm not trying to say he didn't do any worthwhile things in government or anything like that, but the legacy is that the party that he tried to save is now kind of on the ropes. And he's the most recent elected leader of this party. The two since, Dave Hancock and now Rick McIver, are both temporary leaders. And then the next leader may be the guy who takes the party into oblivion, Jason Kenney, who's former caucus mate in Ottawa. So I think it's a legacy that's unfortunately a long way short of what he dreamed of, and he really did dream of a legacy that was positive for the province.
When I think about his legacy, I'm thinking politically, many of the things that he accomplished federally. He was a long-time cabinet minister in the Harper government. He was very much passionate about First Nations rights. He's very passionate about the environment. He brought in some environmental regulations that, and both provincially and federally, when he was in office, that he felt deeply about. And I remember when I asked him what was his favorite book, he said it was a book about Teddy Roosevelt and how he created the national park system. And he said he really learned a lot from that. And I thought that was intriguing.
Well, he told me about a favorite book too, which was the book Team of Rivals, about Abraham Lincoln, who was despised by his opponents in the presidential race that he won. And then after he became president, was such a conciliator and such a wonderful human being that he actually managed to draw these people in to him. And speaking of team, this is Jim Prentice beer. He would hand out these bottles of beer to journalists. I've still got two of them. They were sitting in the fridge until this morning. And it basically says Jim's team for Alberta, or PC Alberta. And he believed in that so much. He really did believe in teamwork. Now you can find, not today, but in other days, you could find opponents that he left pretty bruised because he won in a very firm fashion. So there was some of his opponents were left feeling a little sideways. But generally, the personal opinion of Jim Prentice is extremely positive, as positive among political people as any politician I know of.
Well, lastly, the thing that stands out for me is I talked to a couple of former Tory cabinet ministers and as well some of his political staff, and they all pointed out just how passionate he was about not just the province but also about his family. He spoke a lot about his wife Karen, spoke a lot about his three daughters, and I think that's really the tragic loss here. And that's guess what we'll remember today.
And
Don?
he's so young, and his grandchildren, I mean, he's 60 years old. It's far too young for this. And his grandchildren are young, and he had, he cared so much about family. It's just tragic. And then Karen, his wife, is just a wonderful person, too. Yeah, what can we say?
All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you.